we really appreciate the opportunity to share some of the lessons that we have learned over the years. These lessons are not solely from South Africa. One should hasten to say that within Africa, we have an organization that we call Pan-African Productivity Association, PAPA in short, which Productivity South Africa, which is the organization I'm representing here today, is the secretariat thereof. It just happens that Productivity South Africa happens to be the oldest member of this productivity center in terms of the journey that we have traversed over the years, because we are sitting here in South Africa with an institution that is over 50 years old. How I will go about sharing this experience and trying to make some input to the three key questions that my colleague have just shared before me. I will paint a picture through introduction so that we lay a foundation for what I'm about to share and why it is critical. I'll then delve into the real and practical experience of our productivity center here in South Africa. We believe that in sharing and in giving, you don't actually lose, you actually multiply. And we actually enjoy this moment. That's why we also play a critical role within even PAPA itself. And we believe within the BRICS community, there's a lot that we can be able to contribute as far as productivity and decent work agenda is concerned. We'll then, towards the end, focus on some of the recommendations that we believe will assist in achieving productivity growth and decent work. And finally, the possible collaborative platforms for discussing productivity ecosystem. Let me start by sharing this particular quote from this management guru, Peter Drucker. I believe this is a warning that all of us should heed. He says the following words: growth that adds volume without improving productivity is fat. So if we just stop there in this moment, we know generally growth is a positive thing, but there's growth that is not necessarily positive. So for instance, if I want to lead a healthy life and I grow some muscles, that helps me to burn even more calories, which means that's beneficial growth. But if I happen to be growing because I'm adding more fat, that is not actually helping my well-being in the long term. So that's the point that Drucker is trying to put across. He then went ahead and put it a step further to say that growth that diminishes productivity is cancer. We all know that cancer is a deadly disease. So in essence, he's telling us that if we are growing while neglecting productivity, that growth won't be sustainable. So that's very important, which means whenever we come up with growth models, we need to make sure that this ingredient called productivity should be at the center of this particular growth. So you need growth that is anchored on productivity. I then have another friend, Taylor Cox Jr., who starts to go into the workplace and to the people aspects within that particular workplace. I like these words very much when he say organizations are not made up of bricks and mortar, but of people. And I think this aligns very much well with the decent work agenda. So why we are talking about decent work agenda is the realization that for workplace to be able to achieve its objectives, it relies mainly on people. You have systems, you have tools, you have capital, but at the end of the day, it's the people behind those systems and processes that are able to bring the necessary productivity and competitiveness that every organization seeks to actually enhance. That's why it's important that our workplaces should be able to offer productive work to the people that are within those workplaces. They should be able to provide an environment that is also safe, an environment also where the gains of productivity are equitably shared. This is perhaps the most important piece of information that I will share here today, which we call the productivity value chain. This shows us the power of productivity. Link it to the growth that we were talking about. Hence, we have titled this about building a nation at work. We are saying that for productivity to be enhanced, at the center of it is an enterprise. It's a workplace. The place where we produce goods and services. So if we have any hope of improving productivity, that's the place where we should implement most of our interventions. And in this workplace, labor becomes very, very important. Even the centenary ILO declarations actually state this importance, and hence we have discussions for productivity and decent work today. Because if we are going to succeed at the workplace, we need the right attitudes. And there are so many factors and variables behind attitudes, which means we need to cultivate positive attitudes that will ensure that at the end of the day, the customer will receive what they've requested at the right time, at the right price. That's what productivity at the end of the day is all about. Which means we should get to a level where we are able to share information with all members or stakeholders within a workplace so that they can be able to understand the vision of that particular enterprise and what it seeks to achieve and the role that they play therein. Because an enterprise is pretty much like a human body with hands, eyes, and legs. All these functions are important, though they play different roles. It becomes whole when each of them play its role optimally. So this also means that we need to upgrade skills of those people who are within the workplaces, because we are working in a dynamic environment where there's a lot of changes, as we have seen even with the recent COVID pandemic, which means our business model have to be changed all the time, and it means our labor also needs to adapt and be agile enough to be able to move with those times so that we're able to retain our customer and continue growing our market share. But that's not the only important component. We know innovations plays a critical role, which means capital and systems also need to feature. Hence, my CEO was indicating the issue of total factor productivity, because you need both capitals and labor to be able to do their role optimally for you to eventually have an optimal productive result at the end of the day. And we are saying that once you have a good balance between these variables, you will be able to then produce to the market, which is the reason for existence of enterprise to begin with, quality products and services. Which means, in a way, you are satisfying the customer's needs. You have a case to remain in business. And if you fail on that, you know the rule of the jungle applies. is survival of the fittest. If you are not able to deliver on time at the right price, you are likely going to lose that market share and disappear. Collins wrote a book, I think in the 80s, Good to Great, where he highlighted businesses that were at top of their game during that particular time. And many years afterwards, he had to write another book, How the Mighty Fall, wherein he's indicating that companies that have put on a pedestal as great companies, with best practices, some of them are no more because somewhere they lost it along the way. Because this issue of productivity and competitiveness is a marathon with no finish line. You don't say, I've arrived. There's no ceiling. You continuously have to find ways to innovate and become better at what you do. Once you are doing that, then we are able to see through the collective of enterprises within our nations a better contribution to the gross domestic product, which becomes important for all stakeholders within the market. Labor is able to receive employment out of those benefits, out of productive and competitive enterprises. They're able to get wages and incentives as a result. The same applies to business. They're able to achieve greater competitiveness. Even government also is able to collect even more revenue, because the more profitable the businesses are, the more tax we are able to collect and invest in other social schemes that perhaps the private sector will not be able to invest in naturally. So we are saying this is a key ingredient to actually improve the quality of life of the citizens of every nation. Hence, we believe that productivity is at the heart of improving quality of life of every citizen. All the members of BRICS and all the friends that we have invited and others that are not here, they have one goal: to improve the quality of life of their citizens. And we are saying productivity is the way to go. I'll also make an argument that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, 17 talks about the partnership. I think an important word is missing there. We need productive partnerships. Because when we have productive partnerships and sustainable enterprises, we are able to win in all those 16 goals that we see there. It will not be sustainable, I repeat, it will not be sustainable if it's not anchored on productivity. This is a nice definition that I like from the Institute of Management Development, which as Productivity South Africa we partner with in terms of the global competitiveness report that they produce annually, where they actually talk about sustainable value. You can read from it sustainable enterprises also, because they're saying at the heart of it is the long-term ability of businesses to remain profitable while creating decent jobs without really compromising the environment, which is really what we are driving towards, to make sure that we achieve this, but in a responsible manner. So all the green interventions that we can bring in place, they should be embraced as well. So it talks about that triple bottom line. Our experience here in South Africa on productivity and decent work, I think to begin with, there is a legal instrument behind our productivity center. We have a productivity center that we call Productivity South Africa. So it's created through an act called Employment Services Act. And at the heart of that act, we get a mandate as Productivity South Africa that we need to focus on productivity and employment growth. It is our way of contributing to the socio-economic landscape of the country. Out of that, we've been able to come up with this vision of leading and inspiring a productive and competitive South Africa. For example, on an annual basis, we hold what we call National Productivity Awards, which start at all our provinces, where those people who have shown great strides in terms of achieving productivity and competitiveness are honored and are used as models to be able to disseminate the lessons that we can learn from them, so that the others can be inspired to actually follow the same route and see the benefit of productivity growth and decent work agenda. Even our criteria to actually award this is actually based on that. So how we go about executing our mandate is captured there in the mission. We have what we call productivity practitioners. These people are like doctors. So they are trained in diagnosis, to understand the business case, to understand what the strengths, weaknesses are, and the threats in that particular enterprises, and be able to tap into opportunities. So I won't go deeper into that because of time. But as you can see, we have contribution as a productivity center at a country level. We are able to partner with IMD for the competitiveness report. We are able also at industry level to produce, for example, productivity statistics for every key sectors within our economies. And we have enterprises at plant level that we use to improve productivity and competitiveness. So, and we are also aligned to the agenda of the nation, of the administration, as far as productivity is concerned. Those are the key functions that we have as Productivity South Africa. And in our delivery, you will see that we follow the life cycle of a business. So we have intervention for informal businesses, stable businesses, and businesses in decline, so that we are able to assist our enterprises throughout the life cycle. So this is, I won't touch much on, which is just the operating environment. And these are some of the recommendations. We are saying at all those three key levels, we need to be able to have a proper ecosystem so that we engage and be able to have this decent agenda in place. So we need to be able to focus on training. We need to focus on enterprise support and development, on research, and as well as having a national productivity movement that we have created here in Africa through PAPA. So the platforms, just to, as a parting shot and the final slide, is that you need platforms at all levels, from enterprise level, which we have. All our programs as productivity say have representative of employee management and workers. And then you should have the same structure at industry level, also at national level. If every nation within BRICS have such structures, then from those national members, you are able to form a BRICS platform where there could be sharing of lessons.